This is another lesson that is so important, but you want to pick a winning market when it comes to choosing what you should do with your business. We talked already about playing to your strengths or your zone of genius or your superpower, and we also talked about picking a profitable business model. All of those things will help you ensure you have the wind in your sails so that you can make this as effortless as possible, even though it will still be very effortful because you're a founder. But that being said, all of those are so important. And then the last piece that is also important is picking a winning market. So let's talk about it. You ultimately want to pick a market that isn't declining. So it could be a market that is kind of plateaued and growing a little bit, or it could be a really steeply growing growth market. Either is fine. It's just whatever you're most passionate about, but you really just want to make sure it's not a declining market. Finding a market that is rapidly growing and is not going to pop is quite rare. I would say most markets nowadays are quite stable, but like I said, you want to make sure one is not declining. So let me give you an example. Let's say you're starting an advertising agency. Well, you want to make sure you pick a winning, ideally growing market, but again, okay if it's not growing like rapidly. I wouldn't, as an example, choose newspapers as the market or the niche you pick because newspapers are going out of print and they're dying. And instead, I might try to do social media advertising on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, right? And so just picking a winning market is so important. And I just wanted to emphasize that. So that's the first step. And I want you to leverage the Notion workbook down below to help you identify a market that is going to be winning and help you. The second thing I want to talk about when it comes to the market is the total addressable market size, or the TAM, as some entrepreneurs like to call it. And so the TAM is actually something that is really important because you want to make sure the market is big enough for you to be able to grow, to be able to capture market share and make enough money so that you can actually achieve all your goals. This is something that I wish I thought more strategically about before I started Recloseted. So Recloseted is my first business. It was a consulting agency focused on sustainable fashion brands. And I was really passionate about the fashion industry because I grew up learning a lot about the fashion industry. My mom was a designer. And so I heard a lot about it. And then when I found out about the harmful effects of fast fashion, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to get into sustainability. And this was over 6 years ago. And so back then, sustainability wasn't as hot as it is now. And I knew it was a growing market. So I was like, okay, fashion's a $1 trillion industry. Sustainability is growing. Put the two together and we have a winning market. However, the thing I didn't do is that I assumed that I could be tackling the entire sustainable fashion market. And that's just not true, right? I was working and specializing with more startups, small brands. And so that's a sliver of the market. And then beyond that, I am working with startups, small brands that can afford my services. So that's even smaller. And while it was a really fun market and while there's still things going on in that market, it's not that big. And if I took everything I was doing and just applied it to a bigger market, I would have been able to make a lot more money. And a lot of the times it's not about making as much money as possible, but it is in some ways trying to make sure you don't have things actively working against you. So just making sure you're picking a winning market, but also making sure that the TAM or the total addressable market size is big enough for you. I'm going to leave some resources in the Notion workbook to help you determine the market size and really help you determine what that looks like. And then the last thing I will leave you with is competition. So when you pick a winning market and when the market size is good, know that there's going to be competition. Unless you have amazing foresight and you've identified this complete white space that no one else has identified yet, and you are a huge trendsetter or something, which is a 0.1% chance. But if that's the 0.1% chance and found something, then go for it. Get a patent if you're doing product or something, but go for it. But 99.9% of the time, there's a reason why someone hasn't touched that market, or there's a reason why someone hasn't done that with a 10-foot pole. And you just want to get curious and really examine and see why. Generally, competition is a good thing because it means that there's money to be made. It's a thriving market. There's customers to be served. So don't let that draw you away from entering that market if you think that's something you're passionate in. It's aligned with your strengths. It's a profitable market. It's a winning market. The TAM's big enough. Don't let that dissuade you from going into it because we're going to talk in subsequent lesson videos about how you differentiate yourself and how you make yourself stand out. So don't let that deter you, but just know that you need to be strategic about this. And so leverage the Notion workbook down below to help you pick a winning market and figure out the total addressable market size to make sure you are smart about this. Because not only do we want to play to your strengths, we want to have a profitable business model, but we also want to have a winning and big enough market. Also, keep an eye out for the email for this lesson because I'm going to go a little bit deeper on Recloseted and the market size and all that stuff. And so hopefully it prevents you from making the same mistake I did. Super excited for you to dive into all of this. And once you've completed all these items, I will see you in the next lesson.